G'day, you're listening to the Virtual Staff Room, and this is episode 17, I Like Chinese. So welcome to this episode of the Virtual Staff Room, and in this episode I would like to introduce you to a teacher in Victoria, Australia, by the name of Jess McCulloch, and Jess teaches Chinese. And what's interesting about that is that she's teaching Chinese in a little country school in country Victoria. One of the really interesting things that I get a real kick out of from doing this podcast is the opportunity just to talk to teachers who are teaching things and doing things in areas that I've got absolutely no experience in or expertise in, and just to have a chat about the sorts of things they're doing, and in particular how they're integrating that technology into what they're doing. And I enjoyed this chat with Jess because she's so enthusiastic and so excited about what she's doing with the kids, and just so fired up about the opportunities and the possibilities that technology is bringing to her classroom, her little classroom in country Victoria, with country kids learning this language from the other side of the world, and what technology is doing to enable that. So over to you, Jess. Tell us all about it. So, Jess McCulloch, you are in where?
I'm currently sitting in my little unit in Warrnambool, and I teach in Hawkesdale, which is half an hour north of Warrnambool, about 45 k's drive.
And
it's a prep to 12 school, and I teach Chinese.
Cool, excellent. For the sake of all the folk out there who have no idea what Warrnambool is, you better just tell us geographically, roughly where that sits.
Oh, of course I should. Warrnambool's in southwest Victoria in Australia, just past the end of the Great Ocean Road.
Beautiful, lovely spot.
Yeah, it is a beautiful spot.
Now, sorry, so it's a prep to 12 school.
Yep.
So the littlies all the way up to the biggies.
The littlies all the way up to the biggies.
And how many kids in the school?
At the moment, I think there's about 270.
Okay, so that's a pretty small school. Like, for most schools, that's a pretty small school. And,
that is a very...
And then to go from prep to 12 with those numbers, that's a very small school.
Yes.
Yes,
in
okay.
a very small country.
Now, when we first spoke about this a while back, what intrigued me was in a small country school that of all the languages they would be teaching as a second language, it would be Chinese, or should we be correct and say Mandarin?
No, Chinese is fine.
Chinese,
okay? Mandarin,
okay.
Chinese, yeah,
okay.
just Chinese.
Okay, cool. So, why Chinese?
Well, the lady that I took over from at the start of last year started the program about 12 years ago, and that was around, from my understanding, that was approximately when the legislation came in that every government high school had to teach a LOT.
Yep.
And she had some background and was about the only one qualified in the area. She had actually studied Chinese at university, and so she technically was qualified to do it, and they didn't have many other people in the area. I think the other option was French, but for some reason that I don't know, that didn't come through. So she had the study behind her, and so she started up the program.
Fair enough. And I'll just clarify for again, for anyone who's listening from overseas who might not be familiar with the term LOT in
language other than English.
Languages other than English, excellent. And your website,
living on the edge.
And your website is actually technolot.com.
That's right, technolot.com.
Just thought I'd slide that in there. So
yes, I'll be sliding it right on in again.
So you're teaching Chinese in a small country school in southwestern Victoria.
Yeah.
Right. Now, I was looking on your website the other day, and I linked through to something. I forget where I read it, but it was an article talking about how bloody difficult Chinese is as a language.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I felt fabulous when I read that article. Well, Chinese is so damn hard, it was called.
Yeah.
And it was written by a guy, I can't remember his name right now. I'll just look it up while I'm here. But from a university somewhere in America.
Yep.
And he was obviously not a non-native Chinese and was learning Chinese as a second language. And he just wrote 15 pages about why it's so hard. And I could sympathise with everything he said. And the things that make Chinese so difficult is of course it's writing system, but not only that, it's a tonal language, and so there's 4 different tones that you have to speak with, and that can just really do your head in when you've never had to even consider anything like that before, being a native English speaker.
Yeah, and he was drawing comparisons between, say, learning French or German, or some language has its roots or part roots in English, where you can at least make some connections. But in Chinese, you got none of that.
You don't have any of that. You're totally learning from scratch. At least when you're learning French, that you can look at words and say, oh, well, I can guess what that means because it looks very similar to the way it would be in English. But in Chinese, nothing really looks similar to English because it's all characters. And unless you know how to pronounce that particular character, or unless you understand the components that make up that character, you're lost.
Right, and he was, and I've just found it here, Why Chinese is So Damn Hard, by David Moser, University of Michigan Centre for Chinese Studies. And like he was even saying in here that it's even hard for Chinese people, and you often a Chinese person will be halfway through a sentence and they'll sort of stop and look at their friends and go, what's the word for that?
Yeah, exactly. And I find that actually really encouraging because I forget words all the time too. But also, there's such a massively high rate of illiteracy in China. Like the average, in cities like Beijing, Guangzhou, Shanghai, all those sorts of places, it's not so much of a problem. But the further out you get, you'll find that the people just can't even write their own language.
Really?
And so that's beyond a reasonable point. I'm sure they can do the basics, but to read, say, an academic text or to even read a newspaper, lots of people would struggle.
Yeah.
I've studied Chinese for, it's been nearly 10 years, on and off study over that time, and I'm nowhere near being able to read a newspaper. So, and that can be very frustrating.
Yeah, I can imagine. My father was Polish, and I remember when I was a little kid growing up, and I got to an age where I said to him, I think I'd like to learn how to speak Polish. And he said, well, it's an easy language to learn. I said, is it? And he said, yeah, it's because, back in Poland, little kids who are like 2 years old can speak it. Thanks for that, yeah. But what about me? For you, it'd be difficult. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, of course. Of course. But Chinese is also fascinating, and the one thing that I love about it the most is the characters. And even though I don't know enough of them off by heart to read a newspaper or anything like that, but the way I've started teaching the kids at school how to learn characters is to build them up effectively from what could sort of be talked about as an alphabet. Like there's a whole bunch of different components, and say about 250 or so components, and then you can put them all together in different formats and with slightly different embellishments here and there to create over 40,000 different characters. So That's how many there are. Wow. You only really need 1,000 or about 3,000 to be literate in an everyday world and to read the newspaper. I would possibly know about 1,000.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah, there was another quote on your website there somewhere that I linked through to. It was talking about handing someone a foreign language. When you're learning a foreign language and you hand someone a book and you say, like, take a look at this foreign language book, and it's like handing them a jar full of jelly beans that's with the lid screwed tight, so they can't get it off. It's like they can see it's attractive and they want to be able to get into it, but they just have no idea where to start. And I understand that. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's why, I just try to say to my kids at school, particularly, I always think of year 8 when I talk about this because of the age they are, I suppose, but you present them with anything that's new in Chinese, or a list of words, like, okay, guys, these are the lists we're going to learn this term, or I'll put a new character up on the board, and they immediately do that jelly bean with the jar top on it so tightly thing and just think, I can't do that.
Yeah.
It just looks so foreign to me. I can't do it. So my aim has been this term is that we're pulling characters apart and seeing that really there is logic to characters, there are patterns, and that you can use those to make it easier for you and to help you remember and all those sorts of things. So we're getting there.
Yeah, that's good. So what when the kids get to the end of, or like I'm assuming, can they choose Chinese as a senior language to go through to year 12?
They can. It's compulsory until the end of year 8, and then they choose after that. So it's a 9 and 10 elective, and then last year I had one year 12 student, and next year I'll have 4 year 11 students.
So
this year I don't have
what sort of level with the language would they be at by the time they get to say year 8, which is the end of the compulsory period?
Well, look, they can say simple sentences.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, they might be able to have a very basic conversation that has been practiced, and they can recognise a few characters, quite a few characters, possibly not writing them off by heart because that's actually a whole other skill, and those types of things. But they can do your basic things like count. They can tell you a few things about China and
Oh, good.
say special different words here and there.
Cool. Yeah, I when I was living in Canada last year, and as you know, in Canada it's a bilingual country, and the kids have to learn French up to a certain age. And it always used to amaze me that, you'd get a kid come to the staff room door and I'd open the door and go, oh, bonjour, and just being silly. Yeah. And they'd look at me and go, what? And I'd go, what? Bonjour, like, good day, good morning. And they'd go, oh, right. And I'm going, haven't you guys been learning French for 6 years? And they'd go, oh, yeah, but we don't take it seriously, though,
No, and that's a major problem that LOTE teachers face everywhere, is that not only... it's just not taken as a serious subject for many, many kids. They wouldn't see it as something that's terribly important. And that's also because it's not backed up at home as something that's terribly important. And in many schools, none of the staff would think it's terribly important either. I'm incredibly lucky at my school that I've very, very well supported. And I know I could go to any of my leadership team for help, in LOTE-related help and all that sort of stuff, and they're happy to hear my ideas. But I know for a fact that there's teachers in other schools who don't get funding in their LOTE department because something else is more important, and those sorts of things. So that'll be one of my missions over my career, is to actually change that perception a little bit.
Yeah. Well, speaking of people listening to your ideas, one of the reasons we're talking today is because you try and integrate a reasonable amount of technology into what you do, correct?
Yes. That has become a major interest for me this year. If you'd spoken to me at this time last year, I wouldn't have even be able to tell you what a blog was. But now I've got one. I listen to a billion podcasts, and I'm trying to get as much ICT into my classroom as possible, which I think is really important in a LOTE classroom, particularly it helps with engagement, and the kids think, oh yeah, we get to use the computers, which they love doing, and anything that they can come into my class and say that's cool is great for me, because it tends to be a subject that kids, as I said before, the kids aren't necessarily that interested in or think it's imposed on them and all that sort of stuff. So I've got a smart board in my room. I was lucky enough to find some funding for one of those, and so the kids are absolutely wrapped with that. One of the little grade 2 boys, when I first got it, actually thought I was magic for a little while there. So yes, and I didn't dissuade him.
There's a wonderful quote from Arthur C. Clarke, who wrote 2001: A Space Odyssey, that I think goes something like, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
Well, that was, that's me in my classroom then, according to grade 2. But also I've got my technolote.com blog, which is for teachers, a community. Hoping to build a big community of language teachers through that. But I've also got technolote.com/Chinese, which is Techno Chinese, and that's what I use for the kids in class. And there's lots and lots of examples of them speaking Chinese on there, any different page, like grade 2, and you can you can hear them speaking Chinese there, and also use that blog.
You can hear our Skype signal just degrade there as that page loaded.
Yeah. There's quite a lot on it, so just be patient if you are checking it out.
Oh, okay, this is cool.
Yeah, and so the kids can stay in touch with some things that are happening there. So I plan to use that a lot more this term, much more regularly during the week, so that the kids can see what's going on, or parents can see what's going on. I had some really positive feedback from parents about that site too. So just run through sort of in basic terms for me. How are you using the blog to support the language then? So each grade, I'm just looking at it now, each grade has got a page. Yeah, each grade has a page, and that's where we basically showcase what they're doing. And at the moment, it's showcasing their spoken Chinese, because that's what we've been working on over the past couple of terms. But this term, I'm hoping to do some screencasting and stuff, and it'll be able to showcase their character writing skills and that sort of thing. So really, it's at the moment, it's somewhere where we can display the kids' work, and it can be seen at home. And I think that's and your parents can see what you're doing as well. And look, why not show them what characters you're doing at school? There's also a couple of games pages up the top where games at home page, I found a groovy little website called pictogame.com where you can make a little. I don't know how to describe it. It's not loading quick enough for me to look, but where you slide the blocks around to create a picture. So I just created a picture of a character, and the kids can go in and pull the blocks around and put the character back together and all those sorts of things, just to entertain them there. And then there's Games at School, which links to some network stuff from the Department of Education.
Oh, very nice.
And then, on the front page, I really just use it to put up any sorts of notes. You can see there, my last post there was the 15th of August, so we haven't used it for the front page for a little while. But I will be using that for, really anything that we talk about. You can see further down, I've actually got a couple of YouTube videos there, which obviously the kids can't see at school, but they can check it out at home, of some Chinese beatboxing artists.
Yeah. So
we talk about all sorts of different things in class, and it's these sorts of things I thought were really cool, and I thought that was very important for them to see that Chinese is not just about the characters and the language, and that pop culture in China is very similar to pop culture in Australia, and they do rapping and all these sorts of beatboxing cool things in China as well. So I'll just put any sort of stuff up on there that I think the kids would actually get a laugh out of, really.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm just looking at a little cluster map here where it shows where you're getting visits from on the website, and it's interesting. The second biggest dot.
I haven't looked at it for a while.
Yeah, it's good, huh? The second biggest dot outside of Australia is actually in China somewhere.
It's actually in China, yeah. I'm sure this would actually be quite of interest to a few people in China, different teachers who are planning on teaching Chinese as a second language. Because there's lots of programs in China, of course, to train native speakers to teach foreigners their own language, and a lot of those teachers end up coming to Australia and other places. So, yeah, it would be interesting to see what they thought of this sort of thing.
Yeah, one thing I did notice about language teaching in Canada, and again, Canada's a really unique case because it's compulsory and because it's a multi-language country, is that as well as the fact that a lot of kids kind of resent it because they shouldn't have to do it, is... I completely forget where I was going with that sentence. What was it? It was a really good point too.
Not only did they resent it, but...
Oh yeah, I know what it was. Yeah, because they were teaching the French over there in a really academic way.
Yeah.
That it was all about grammar. It was all about being perfect in the language and about learning present tense and past participles and all the rest of it. And there didn't seem to be a whole lot of fun in the learning of the language.
No. I will never ever teach a grammar class per se, unless it's a specific thing, say at a higher VCE level where, they really have to nut out the mechanics of something. I can understand that. But if you're trying to get up in front of year 8 and teach them grammar, and this is the subject and verb object, and this is, I can't even think of the grammar terms off the top of my head now, but, this is how you do the past tense in Chinese, etc., 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 the kids are just going to go to sleep, really.
Well, my daughter was learning French in grade 5, and she said they spent most of her time dealing with grammar.
No, yeah, that's unfortunate, because I don't believe that that's the right way to teach a language. I'm not saying that it's the wrong way at all, and I can see a place for an element of that sort of teaching, but really, we can't. You and I probably couldn't sit down and explain the exact grammar of the English sentences that we're using in this conversation. So it's not grammar understanding is not necessarily essential to communicating in a language. So for me, my philosophy is that you don't have to get language right all the time. I mean, we could say our sentences backwards, but we would still know what the other person meant. And even if you're communicating in a second language, why is that such a big problem? If you're getting out there and you're trying, you're having a go at it, and you're communicating, you're getting your message across. It's okay if your grammar's a little bit wonky. I'm not saying you should deliberately go out there and try to do it differently or try to do it incorrectly, but there's much more to a language than worrying about exactly how the sentences are put together.
Yeah, well, I was endlessly intrigued by that. This focus on grammar at the expense of what seemed to me like making it a fun thing to learn.
Yeah, exactly. But there's so much fun stuff you can do with Chinese. For example, last term I got my year 9 and 10 class to choose any lesson that appealed to them from a site called ChinesePod.com, which has got a massive amount of Chinese language stuff. And one of the groups, the kids did a lesson on how to say who farted. And I thought that was hilarious. So anything that the kids can do that makes them laugh and they think, oh, yeah, that's pretty cool. So now basically everyone in that class knows how to say who farted in Chinese. And actually, that would be a fairly important sentence to know. Yeah, I don't know if you want to edit that bit out or not, but anyway.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
So things like, say, podcasting, I would think that because learning languages is a very auditory experience, that the podcasting to me would seem like, I mean, I'm not a language teacher, but I would think that it'd be a really useful thing.
Oh, very useful, and I haven't used it enough yet. But for example, I'm planning on this term with some of the older kids, year 9s and 10s. I really want to expose them, say, to the top 100 Chinese words, in like high frequency words, effectively. And there's not going to be enough time in class to actually go over every single word in detail so that they understand. And I'm not expecting them to memorize every single thing, but I'm going to podcast, say, every week, 10 of those words. And so they'll be able to listen to it on the bus on the way home from school, and because they have a lot of time on buses every day, the kids, because they all come in from the farms. And those sorts of things. But also it's great for the kids to podcast for each other. Like I often have Audacity open on my smartboard for recording, and the kids just love hearing their own voices, and then they love presenting it to somebody else. So that's a really powerful tool, a powerful way of teaching them as well.
Well, I would have thought so. You know, when you learn to do anything, you generally learn by doing it, not by talking about it. Well,
yeah, exactly.
That's probably come out wrong then, but you know what I mean. Like,
yeah, I understand what you mean. Yeah, and if there's anything that I can bring into my classroom that gets the kids to try another language, just gets them to try a few words and laugh at themselves or laugh at each other. Well, you know, if they're laughing, they're possibly learning a bit better. So, you know, go for it. And I don't mind if they don't learn the 10 words I've put on their list. If they learn 2 of those words, but they've been exposed to words from another source, well, then that's great, because that's how language is. It's not a finite amount of information. You're always going to be picking up new stuff. So if I can show them that it's fun to pick up new stuff, then my job will have been done.
So what have you seen any other sort of really interesting uses of technology as related to the language classroom?
Well, Skype is a great one. We've done a bit of collaboration with some Chinese kids at a school here in Warrnambool. So us out at Hawkesdale talking to some Chinese kids here at a primary school. So that was technology, and we've been had a wiki with them. So we just note what the kids have actually talked about. You can read about this on my blog, which is technolote.com, www.technolote.com.
Cool. You'll find it in the show notes after the show.
You'll find it in the show notes. Excellent. And other things in a language classroom, off the top of my head, no. No, I'm just trying to think. Hang on, there's all these other things. It's a lot of it's about blogging and podcasting and stuff like that is the main stuff that's out at the moment.
Yeah, Sylvia Tolosano is another teacher who you and I have spoken about before. Before,
yeah.
And she seems to be doing a whole lot of interesting things as well.
Oh yeah, she's got incredible stuff happening there. Oh yeah, of course with technology there's things like Photo Story and PowerPoint and things like that. You can get the kids to do presentations and record their voice on that. And she's talked a lot about things like the little GPRS. Is that the little things that you run around with?
Oh, GPS.
GPS. Sorry.
Yep, that's right.
She's into finding out more about those. And what else was she talking about? She does so many things. A lot of it would then be things like screencasting and presenting the kids' work that way, or teaching other people that way, which is basically screencasting is just recording what you're doing on the screen for the listeners out there that don't know what I'm actually talking about. I'm just looking at Sylvia's site now, and she's just got so much stuff on here that she talks about. The woman's incredible. Oh, yeah, VoiceThread.
Oh, yeah. Now, tell me about VoiceThread. Have you used that?
I have, but only for myself. I haven't used it in class yet, but that's on my actual list of assessments for this term. Okay, explain it to me, because I haven't played with VoiceThread. Everyone keeps saying to me you need to do it, and I must admit I just haven't found the time. Okay. So what is it? VoiceThread, well, do you know what Photo Story is? I do. That's when you get a whole bunch of photographs and you put them into like a little digital storytelling type thing. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep, VoiceThread's not dissimilar to that. It's an online version, basically. Okay. So you you go to the website, and then you can embed your little photo, your voice thread story into wherever you need to put it. But it's really easy to use. You can go in there and you can actually you upload your photos, and then you say how long you want them to scroll through for, and then you can actually write on each of the photos and point out things. You can record your voice over each photo. You can put a little type a little note at the side, and it gives you like a speech bubble next to each photo that comes up if you want to provide more information or add a name in or something like that. So yeah, it works. It's very, very easy to do. And I'm just bringing it up now and seeing if there's anything I've forgotten to tell you about. But I think it would just be it's just a different way of presenting, and it's a way that's online and doesn't take up a massive amount of storage space. So
how would you get the kids to use that then? So they'd go and take some photos and then arrange them into a story somehow?
Yeah, well, what I'm actually thinking of getting them to do this term is taking photos of their work, like drawing some characters. We'll be doing some calligraphy in a couple of weeks, so I might get them to draw some characters, take some photos of that, and we'll put that up there, and then they can just explain perhaps to a listener what they've created and why this character means what it does and the parts of it. So That's what I'm planning to do, yeah. Or we could have the kids just, putting up words and then saying sentences, like they could do a voice note on greetings in Chinese and put the Chinese word up there, and you would hear them repeating that word, and you would also hear them maybe interacting with someone else and showing you how to use that word as an example. So it's just another voice tool, really, voice recording, but it's online and it's with photos, so it works really easily.
Yeah, one of the things I really like about your approach to teaching languages is it's not just about the language, it's actually about the whole cultural experience of the Chinese culture, not just the Chinese language.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and you can't avoid that because. And I think so much
especially Chinese, the culture and the language are very interlinked, aren't they? If I understand
absolutely,
correctly.
like you'll learn a bunch of Chinese characters, and they may seem like they're simple words, but when you actually focus on what components make up that character, you understand a whole lot about that culture, which approaches a particular concept. And I can't think of an example off the top of my head. I'll have to get you one, actually. I'll have to think of one. Okay. So, the word good, for example, and you pronounce it hao, H-A-O, hao.
Hao.
Hao, yep. And that means good, but okay, so that's fine, big deal, whatever. But if you actually look at the character, it's made up of two parts. And the first part is female or woman, and the second part is child. So a woman who has a child, that's a good thing. So this character means good.
Wow.
Yeah, and even though that may perhaps be more of an ancient concept, of course, because the language is, 5,000 years old, there would be still elements of that around today, but that's the sort of culture you can get out of, cultural information that you can get out of a single word. And, if you look at the English word good, that just means good. It doesn't tell you really anything else about what we think is good.
Yeah, right, yeah. Yeah.
So there's so many, many levels, and that's why it's just so very fascinating. And I really hope I can just bring that to my kids this term.
Yeah, I read somewhere once, and maybe it's a myth, I don't know, that the Chinese character for, is it crisis, is a combination of the characters for danger and opportunity.
Yeah, I think it is. I'm not terribly familiar with that character. I can't think of it off the top of my head. I would have to run and get my dictionary. But yes.
A Chinese dictionary? Oh my God, how do you use that?
Well, have you got about a term? I can explain a few things to you. Basically, in a nutshell, each character has a reference point called a radical, and you would look up that particular radical, and that radical is only made up of one or two strokes. So you look up that part, and then in the dictionary, it shows you all the characters that have that particular radical, and you just locate the one that you need.
Okay, so there is logic to it.
Oh, there is a lot of logic, yep. Yeah, it's actually, once you get really stuck into characters and you can see past the fact that it's just a bunch of confusing lines, there is a lot of logic. It makes a lot of sense, and in some instances, the way things are expressed in Chinese make a lot more sense than the way they're expressed in English. So, yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah, it seems to be a language that carries a lot of nuance.
Absolutely. Very, very, full of nuances and full of context. Like there'd be many, many times that meanings would be misunderstood simply because the context surrounding that that thing has been missed, and therefore you've lost the whole meaning of that sentence, and you can't understand. And that's particularly difficult and frustrating for a second language learner of Chinese.
I can imagine that, and as the article said, that's why it's so damn hard.
Yeah, so damn hard. There's been days where my dictionary has flown across the room. Yeah.
I've often thought about doing an evening class in another language, and I thought Chinese would be really useful, but I think it'll be like golf, it's one of those things that unless you do it all the time, you're just never going to get good at it.
Yeah, there is definitely an element of that. But if you've got, and I would never ever, of course, discourage anyone from giving it a go, but if you've got the interest to give it some of your time, you will really find lots of different things to be interested in it, to find fascinating. There's so many different things, and you might want to focus on one particular thing and say, oh, well, I'm going to get good at writing or at reading 2 or 3 particular sentences, so that if I ever have to if I'm ever having an interaction with a Chinese family that's moved in down the street, or you might find yourself in China for a business deal, or just in the local shopping centre, there's a Chinese businessman who runs a shop there, and the fact that you can say hello, or you can write the word thank you, or you can say thank you in Chinese will make a world of difference.
Well, it works for Kevin Rudd.
It certainly does. I'm very impressed with Kevin Rudd's language skills.
Do you reckon he really did that, or was that lip syncing?
Oh, no, he did it.
He really did learn. Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, that was his voice, and he spoke very, very well.
Did he really? Just for anyone who's listening to this who doesn't get that reference, Kevin Rudd is the opposition leader for our government here in Australia, and at the recent APEC conference, he got up and spoke and addressed the Chinese people actually in Chinese, and I think it went down pretty well, didn't it?
Oh, yes, very, very good. And I was very impressed that I understood everything he said, actually, so that was good. He got up and said welcome and the nice things that you would normally say, like thank you for coming, and we hope you enjoy the lovely scenic spots in Australia and all that sort of stuff. Right. So it's quite funny.
Okay. Well, I think we've covered a fair bit of ground there, and look, you sound like you're really sort of ramping up the whole way you're trying to use technology to do some of this stuff, which is great to see.
Absolutely, yeah.
And
anything that makes the classes more engaging for the kids, but also giving them the skills as well, like in this digital age that we're moving into. So yeah. Well, just like Chinese doesn't just happen in the classroom, the ICT stuff doesn't just happen in computer class.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Jess, that's been great. Thanks for sharing all that with us. I really appreciate that.
No worries, it's been fun. And if any language teachers listening would like to get in touch, I'd be really keen to start building that community up.
Yeah, now does it matter if it's Chinese language or can it be any language?
Any language, absolutely.
Oh, good, excellent. Yep. Well, I think it's exciting times for language teachers. I think with the way we can use technology now to do things like podcasting and cater for that auditory component, and to use the writing component of all our blogging and wikis and all that sort of stuff, and the connectivity that we can get now from things like Skype and VoiceThread and everything else, where you can go and communicate outside the 4 walls of your classroom. It's pretty exciting times for language teachers.
Yeah, it's great. I love my job.
I can tell, and that's really good to see.
Cool.
All right, no worries. Good on you. Thanks, Jess.
All right, thanks, Chris.
Okay,
bye.
see ya. Bye. As always, you can find all the show notes and links to things mentioned in this episode over at www.virtualstaffroom.net. And speaking of the website to support the podcast, I had a note from a listener recently who was commenting on the fact that I've got these little flash embedded things on the page over there, so you can click the play button and actually listen to these podcasts live streaming off the web page. And this person wrote to me and observed that one of the problems with that is if you don't listen to the whole thing, that every time you replay it, it starts from the beginning again, which can be a little bit frustrating if you get interrupted halfway through and want to go back and pick up from where you left off. I guess those little playable doodads on the page there that you click and listen to, they're kind of just a convenience thing, just like a sampler, so you can pick up a feel for what's in each episode. By far the best way to listen to these podcasts is to subscribe using any of the major podcast feeds, including iTunes. and I would recommend iTunes as the way to listen to these podcasts. If you go to the website, you'll see a link there that says how to subscribe, and it takes you through the whole process of doing that, very step-by-step way. There's pictures and diagrams, so if the idea of subscribing to a podcast is still a bit intimidating to you, just have a read through that. I've tried to simplify it, make it really easy for you. One click simple, I hope. But there's lots of ways you can listen to a podcast. You can stream it off the page using the little flash doodads, or you can subscribe to it and get it downloaded to iTunes or Juice or any of those podcast listeners. And then obviously if you've got something like an iPod, or it doesn't have to be an iPod, it can be any MP3 player capable, and that's why we broadcast these things in MP3 because it's a really universal format. It will play on any player. So you don't have to have an iPod, but of course I do like iPods. So there you go. So that's about it for this episode. I do thank you for listening and for the feedback. And as always, there's a place to leave comments on the blog, and I do really enjoy getting those comments. So please, if you've got any thoughts about the podcast, things you'd like to hear, comments you'd like to make, things you'd like to tell me where I've been a complete idiot and I've done something silly. So happy to take it all in. So make sure you leave us a comment. Till then, my name's been Chris Betcher. Well, actually, my name's still Chris Betcher. You've been listening to the Virtual Staff Room. It brought out a meal, and it had chicken heads. Like, it was a chicken, but everything was there. The whole head, everything.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember getting these bloody chicken heads and sticking a chopstick up the back of it and turning them into puppets and sitting there in the table and doing chicken head puppetry on chopsticks. And all these other people were going, oh, my God, the Australians are here.
Kyle.